Hello everyone and welcome to Dev Tricks and Secrets. Today we're taking a look at 20 hidden rooms across multiple titles and maps of Call of Duty Zombies, stretching from those beginning maps in World at War all the way to Black Ops 2. This series is really just a way to celebrate the development of these maps, and if you enjoy any of it, then consider leaving a like down below. It helps me out a ton, and of course make sure to subscribe so you can come back for more. But without further ado, let's get into it.
Great! Power's out!
Starting off in Verrukt here, if we just go ahead and no-clip right through the ceiling and spawn, we'll find ourselves a maze, a massive open hidden room that winds itself around the top section here of Verrukt. This hidden area connects to multiple window locations, one like this right here, which is a little rip-out window location that the zombies come through, and others, such as this one right here, which is the traditional sort of wooden board window location that we all know and love. But it is really cool to be able to walk up here and see that all of them are connected by a massive room that most people probably don't know even exists. And it spans across the entirety of the map as well, reaching all the way from the staircase near Speed Cola to the very beginning staircase that you walk up near Double Tap. A few really cool details about this is there are multiple doorways that connect to it that you don't get to go through, of course, such as this one right here, and another one right next to it here. On the other side, there are a couple more, such as this one. However, it's kind of outside of the map itself. But there is also this door, which outside of the map just looks like a little indent, while inside the map, of course, it is fully modeled. But heading across the map now for our next hidden room, we can see something very similar on this side. If we go ahead and step through this door, we find another massive space hidden out of bounds. This one wraps itself behind power as well as the kitchen through a little area here that has a window location, and you get to see most of this. But it does indeed continue past this towards an area that doesn't even have exterior walls. You just look out into the burned forest. Now, of course, Verrukt was originally a campaign mission, and all of this space existed in that campaign map. You could walk through it, it was a playable area. In fact, right here was an MG42 bunker that the enemies could operate as you came through the door. So that does help explain why a lot of this space exists, but nevertheless, it is really cool to be able to walk through in Zombies and see that a lot of it is still here. But there is one of these massive rooms that cannot be explained by the campaign missions. If we go ahead and fly out here into the courtyard, of course, we can find some doors here that zombies come out of. But going inside of them, we'll see a massive room. And I do mean massive. It wraps around underneath this little window location here that goes up to power, and past that as well, connecting to each one of these exterior doors that the zombies have pathing through. It even stretches further to the right to this big old space that definitely has no business being here. I don't think the zombies even pathed this far. For our next hidden room here on Verrukt, we're going to first go underneath the map and appreciate something that's hidden way over here. All of these deployable MGs. From the BAR all the way, of course, to the FG42. It seems that on Verrukt, each one of these weapons was going to have some sort of room like this right here, where you would be able to deploy your bipod and shoot down zombies as they came at you. Of course, gameplay-wise, with a door open right next to you, it doesn't exactly work all that great. And not to mention, I don't think the developers got the bipod deploying situation to work out all that well, as I believe it crashes the game if you do end up doing it. But there are multiple of these little rooms hidden around the map, such as this one right next to the BAR that was probably going to serve the same purpose. And across the way, right here by the stairs, another little hidden room. Again, same kind of deal. There is no modeling in these. However, I imagine that they were going to be the same kind of situation as that bar room. It's not set in stone, of course, but they are about the same size as this one, and it's really cool to imagine what these areas would have looked like. Heading on out of the map of Kino Numa for our next hidden room. Around the outside of the spawn area, there are a couple of these huts, which, although they do kind of classify as hidden rooms, they aren't super interesting. Well, at least this one. Because I imagine most people know this at this point. Inside of this hut over here is a little hidden Easter egg that says Tunguska, which I've covered this in multiple other videos, so we won't talk about its meaning in this one, but still, it has to be mentioned, as it's probably one of the first hidden rooms in Zombies that really meant something. But for our next hidden room, flying on over to the doctor's quarters, there is something to be found underneath the floorboards. Something that I definitely never knew was there. If we no-clip underneath Quick Revive, of course we'll find some water, but not only that, a big old basement room here that actually stretches quite far down below. And inside the water as well, you can kind of swim. Although World at War doesn't exactly have an animation for this, your gun does point upward and you start slow walking through the water as if you're crossing a river or something. Which I suppose that is an animation that was used in the World at War campaign, so it makes sense that it's here too. But what doesn't make sense is why this basement is here. Because although you can see into it, at least partially, the same can be said for all the other huts, which do not have a basement like this one. So I suppose that this doctor's hut was a bit of a marvel. Perhaps the developer that put this one together just really wanted to sell the depth. Or perhaps they were thinking about adding a basement to this building. I guess we'll never know. But that's all that Numa has for us, so heading on into Riese for our next dev secret. Inside of the door that we just came out of, we can see that there is a hidden room here, although it's not much of one. There is no collision. But for one, there is dog prints leading off outside of the map, and a window location just sitting here out of sight. Now, although I wouldn't say that this necessarily is a hidden room per se, as there's not much of a room here anymore, it is very fun to speculate what could have been here. This seems to point to me that at one point they were considering this area being a playable location, and perhaps another route through here somehow to get to the teleporter room, or maybe through this door right here. But I suppose this begs the question though, how were we supposed to get to there, as obviously over here by Jug there is no set pathway. Perhaps at one point there was going to be a little bit of a staircase that led on down to this bit of the yard, and then this was going to be a viable door, but I guess we'll never know. This map, although one of my favorites of all time, that is all we have for it, so heading on into Black Ops 1 for our next hidden room. Here in Kino der Toten, there actually isn't a lot to be said. I mean, there's some hidden spaces that you don't really get to know exist, like this one right here on the balcony, and for instance, another one that's just opposite of it right over here that you can look out and see the stage from. And although these areas are very cool to explore, there's something else I want to show you guys. Hidden rooms that all of you have been to before, but you might not have noticed exactly where they're hidden. If we go outside the front door of Kino der Toten, of course we got a little bit of a sidewalk to walk down, but not only this, to our left, we can see something just floating out there. And getting a closer look, of course, this is one of the hidden rooms that you get teleported to during the teleportation process. They have the film reels in it that you can pick up and play at the projector. This one, I suppose, being modeled a little bit after Verrukt, although looking at some of the other stuff going on here, it doesn't look like that exactly. It's a bit more modern. And this room has a couple of hidden rooms itself, such as this one right here that's adjoined to it with a few bookshelves as well as a weird black window. And a door behind us that looks extremely ominous, actually. The model for this, I don't know if it's used anywhere else, but man, they really should have. But of course, this is not the only one, because in the other direction, there is another room that, again, no clipping inside of. This room has some ominous white curtains surrounded around another dentist chair. Ton of blood on the ground, and a head just sitting here, which I don't think you can really get a view of from inside the map, so it's kind of cool to see that it's just down here. But of course, we have more than just that one room to explore, as there are multiple of these teleporter rooms that you go to, such as this one over here, which is Samantha's bedroom, but in a hellish, demonish dimension, with tons of blood and teddy bears on the floor. This one, there aren't any other adjointed rooms to it, however, right next to it is another version of Samantha's bedroom, the more put together and Agartha-looking version of it. This one fit with some perk bottles and a teddy bear drinking them, as well as a classic game of chess, which is a model that can be found in many games across the franchise. But finally, flying outside of this one, if we go all the way around the backside of the theater, we can find our final hidden room. One that looks like it was taken directly from 5, as we have a little Pentagon office and, well, the Ascension rocket right here on the table. Which, look at that little interaction symbol. Looks kind of familiar, doesn't it? Well, with that being said, I suppose we should probably just step right on into 5, because 5 holds our next hidden room. In 5, of course, there is a ton of out-of-bound space that you can walk into, so I suppose this is kind of a hidden room, although, I mean, you can see it very well from inside the map. Still, it is very cool. But if we go ahead and go back into spawn here, we can find something very strange. I mean, for one, this is the first zombies map that only has one way to leave. Normally, of course, in zombies, you have 2 routes to choose from, while in this, of course, we only have one option that leads to the elevator. Well, if we go on over here towards Quick Revive, we'll find that this was not originally the plan. As we no-clip through this wall, we'll find a hallway here, perfectly connecting to where Quick Revive is. However, now there is a wall in its place, and instead of being able to actually walk through there, they slapped down a wall, a few models, and of course Quick Revive itself. Now, if we do walk through here, we can see that it does connect to a window location. So you might be thinking, well, I mean, perhaps it's just an overextended window, and they made a huge room over here for zombies to spawn that has door models and a lamp for no reason, but they just did it anyway. Well, if we go through these door models, we'll find unused window locations. Very much so hinting at the fact that this was once going to be playable space, and therefore probably one of the coolest hidden rooms on this list. So I'm going to take a sip of the coffee, because of course I have my coffee with me here this morning. I hope wherever you are, whatever time you're watching this, you're enjoying yourself, because I absolutely love zombies and hidden rooms. Exploring them, probably one of my favorite things to do on this channel. And if you're enjoying this as much as me, then consider leaving a like down below. It helps out a ton. And of course, make sure you're subscribed so you can come back for more, as there are a lot more things to check out. So let's continue. Before we leave 5, I just want to give some honorable mentions and a little slot here on the list for them, as we did cover these very recently as well on the channel, but they kind of deserve to be mentioned anyway, such as this little hidden room here at the end of the river entrance. Sadly, this room doesn't exactly go anywhere. All that's left from the actual river entrance in USDD is just this tiny little room. But still, nonetheless, really cool to see that it exists, with a couple light models here just hanging from the ceiling. And on top of this, over here by Speed Cola, another room that we just covered. If we go through this wall, there is a hidden window location here as well, fit with absolutely no modeling, other than a rug, I suppose, on the floor, and an area here around the corner for zombies to spawn. The cool part about this window location is it does connect through a back hallway here to this window location, one that is actually used down the hallway. So I suppose there wasn't really a need for it after all. But to make this entry on the list worth visiting for those who have recently watched those videos on my channel, if we enter the Inner Sanctum here and look behind this door, we'll find another hidden window location and a hidden picture on the wall of Dempsy. The same one, of course, that you can find in Kino. Just like outside of this room, where you can see Richthofen, sitting here on the wall, right next to an unknown painting of a silhouette man. I don't exactly know why they decided to take out this window location. Perhaps they thought that it would be a little bit too hard, as there are a lot of windows in here already. And not to mention, pack-a-punching on 5 isn't the easiest thing to do in the world, with it being a somewhat cramped map. I guess they just wanted to make it easier, and the way they did that was to slap a door in front of a completely finished window location that has been completely modeled, with even newspapers here on the table. In fact, it looks almost identical, say, to the modeling in this room, so it definitely was finished, but I guess it just never got to see the light of day. But that is it for 5, so let's go ahead and take the elevator down to Call the Dead, as this is where our next hidden room is, and specifically into the Lighthouse, where underneath the ice is a massive space here that never gets to be seen. The staircase even continues underneath the ice as well, although it doesn't make it all the way to the ground. And there really isn't much modeling down here either, although there are some pieces of the broken floor that seem to have fallen to the ground. From above the ice, it is nearly impossible to tell that that space is actually that large. Although, I suppose, getting towards the middle here, seeing the staircase actually wind down below you, is probably the reason that they made this area this big, to give that extra perspective without the need to fake it. For our next hidden room here on Call of the Dead, if we go on through this door... Oh, there's nothing here. Well, I guess we're gonna have to go to TranZit, because here on Black Ops 2, there are a ton of hidden rooms to discover. Which, starting off here in TranZit, of course everyone knows about the famous bowling alley, an area that I really wish was playable space. Being able to train zombies through here would be amazing, but this is not the hidden room that I'm trying to show you guys. An area that people know much less about is the Motel, which has a fully made top floor. Although it may not look like it, considering a lot of the textures have been culled out, this entire area has collision, even walls that don't look like they exist. There's one side room right here, which I'm not entirely sure what it would be, but there's also a hallway in the middle, leading over towards these windows here, looking down on the street. And there is also, of course, this little room with a painting floating off of the wall. This area is used in zombies as a spawn location currently. Zombies do spawn up here, and they jump on down to this rooftop below, and then in through this hole here. But walking up there, it definitely feels like the area was made for something more than just a zombie spawn location. As zombies quite literally just spawn right there, out of sight, and that's all they use. It might just be wishful thinking, but imagining what it would have been like to be able to have this entire interior space playable, and perhaps this door right here viable. Not to mention being able to train zombies around the exterior through the alleyway would have been absolutely insane. But before we leave TranZit, I want to give an honorable mention to something else located in town. This storefront that's just on the edge of the fog. If we go inside of it, it's extremely dark. It's very hard to see anything in here, but when you start shooting, you'll notice there are actually textures below you. From the outside looking in, you cannot tell that there's an interior in this building other than these little storefront windows. But as it turns out, behind these doors, there is an actual interior space that's fully textured as well. And you may want to look away now because I'm turning on full bright, just so you can get a full perspective of what I mean. Although, oh my god, this is blinding me, so let's turn this off. Much better. But that is it for TranZit. So let's go ahead and take a walk on down the highway all the way to Nuketown. Oh, finally, we've made it to Nuketown. What's that sound? Oh my god. Here on Nuketown, there are a couple hidden rooms that I want to talk about, but mainly really just one, as obviously there's only two main buildings here in the actual map, and as for the ones outside of the map, well, most of them don't really have much going on inside of them at all. There is this one here that is right on the edge of the map, and it does have some interior spaces, such as this one with a little mannequin in it, and the rest of the house as well, but it's really dark and has no modeling. But what is perhaps the most interesting hidden room here on Nuketown is all the way out there, where if we no-clip on over, although it does actually take a second because it's somewhat far outside the map, we'll make it over to an area that we can see has 3 different buildings and a power line. A power line that looks a lot like the ones on TranZit. As for these 2 buildings right here, they have no interior really whatsoever. I mean, this one has a small bit of an interior, I suppose, but I mean, it's not much to talk about. And then there's this one over here, which has no interior really whatsoever. But finally, there's the bunker, which barely looks like a building. It's pretty much just, well, a concrete block with little cutaway windows for people to be able to look out of. Now, it's not that the interior of this is super interesting either. It's completely plain and has no modeling. It's basically a black box. But in the multiplayer version of this map, there are little mannequins looking back at you out of these little slits this far out of the map. That's really hard to see, especially without some kind of scope. And here in Zombies, it's still present, although there's no mannequins this time. Which is sort of unfortunate, because it would be really cool to see some zombies just staring back at you. But heading on over to Die Rise now for our next hidden room, which, funny enough, has a ton of hidden areas to check out. First of all, on your way down this elevator at the very start, there are a couple of hidden hallways, such as this one right here, which is, rather plain, but it is fully textured and even modeled with some debris along the ground. There are a couple of little offshoot rooms that are all connected, there's no walls between them, and it's extremely thin. And at the very end of it, well, there's a door that leads to absolutely nowhere. The carpet itself continues a little bit, but other than that, there is nothing here. However, right above this hidden hallway is another one, and this one has PhD Flopper in it. The ultimate troll by the developers, leaving PhD Flopper just out of reach. And here it is, in a hallway that you can barely see as you go plummeting past it. On the side of the elevator doors, there is a barrier that just cuts off access. But if you somehow did get into here, there is a little space that you can walk around before another barrier exists in front of PhD Flopper. So even if you did glitch through the first barrier, you'd be stuck with another barrier that is massive between you and the machine. And even trying to no-clip inside of it and being able to walk next to it well, I immediately get pushed out of that barrier. So unfortunately, we can't hump the machine or something. But we are able to get a nice up-close look at the machine that is completely covered in blood, and has little offshoot doors to the left and right, although these sadly don't exactly go anywhere. As for the rest of these stops along the way, there are no hallways associated with them. In fact, they actually go directly into another elevator shaft, this one seemingly being used for Speed Cola. But what is probably cooler, at least to me, than just a hidden PhD machine is an entire hidden floor here on Die Rise. The elevators here on Die Rise have 4 positions, 3 of them that you can access and 1 of them that you don't get to go to, that is just below the bottom floor you can access. And as it turns out, if I go right below us here, we can see that, well, here's the quick revive machine, and here is an entire hidden floor. But of course, at first glance, there are no models here, but there are actually invisible walls that make up some of the space. There's some sort of hallway right here that would have led to quick revive, and another room right here that would have led to this perk machine. It's just really cool to me to see this and speculate, at least put in my mind what it would have been like to have some extra rooms down here. Although Die Rise itself is kind of a confusing map to begin with. Like, in this building alone, there's already a lot of hallways and different rooms sort of meandering their way through the building, so it sort of makes sense why they scrapped the idea of an extra floor below this. Nevertheless, though, it is really cool to think about what it would have been like to have an entire extra playable space, but it turns out this is not the only hidden floor on Die Rise. Over here inside of the Dragon building, there is this massive area below us that zombies spawn in and then crawl their way out of and make their way to their respective window locations. Inside of this area, although I suppose you could kind of say that this is a hidden room because you don't see most of it, is a large open space that is filled sort of with a barrier, unfortunately. We can't walk through a lot of this. But what is way cooler than this area is what's through this wall, which is a hidden room all on its own, something that you never get to peek inside of, as there's no hole through the roof here whatsoever. But yet there's carpet on the floor and a stop for the elevator, which apparently is Juggernog right now. This room that I'm standing in is completely unused. However, it does lead to a little doorway and a hallway that goes outside the map. And behind us is an area that zombies spawn. They spawn somewhere around here and then make their way towards this hole in the ground and up to this window location here. So part of this did end up getting used, but it's really cool to see just how much of this floor was created that never got to see the light of day. What is currently just a massive open space leading to one of the elevator locations that may have at one point been planned to have some sort of a staircase. I mean, there is a sign here for one after all. But alright, that is it for Die Rise, so let's go ahead and drop on in to Mob of the Dead, because here in Alcatraz are our next hidden rooms. To start things off, it would be a shame not to mention that the entirety of Alcatraz is made here, fit with jail cells and all, although a lot of them outside of bounds don't have any modeling whatsoever. But I really do mean the entirety of Alcatraz, as even areas like this that you literally cannot see whatsoever exist. So I suppose this is sort of a hidden room in itself, but this is not what we're here for. Because just below us in the Citadel tunnels is something quite interesting. If we go on through the door here, well, we have the tunnels. And in these tunnels are a bunch of window locations, like this one here. But not only window locations, there's a lot of little rooms like this that are added for ambiance, such as these here. And as it turns out, there is a tunnel that connects all of this area. Places that you don't really get to see except for little glimpses through a grate. But this tunnel does continue, and it connects through all of these rooms, and even further, this one wrapping all the way back to showers. And if we head through this wall, well, we can see more tunnels, leading to a window location, and to our left, the last of those rooms that we just saw earlier, going towards this body that, well, doesn't exactly look like he's having a good time, does it? Although you can see some of this from inside the map, it is really cool to be able to get an up-close look, and also see that this tunnel connects to every single one of these rooms. But this is not it for the tunnels. In fact, that's like less than half of it. As right here by the entrance to the showers to our right is another one of these ominous-looking doors that's just a grate. And going through it, of course, well, there's a bit of a tunnel here. But not just a bit of a tunnel. As we can see, it continues, and continues, and continues, all the way around the basement area here on Mob of the Dead. It even makes its way to Double Tap, where it ends with a flat wall that could have connected to this area, but just never ended up doing it. It's really cool to see the extent at which these developers go to make this ambiance a thing, and feel like there's more depth to these tunnels than there actually is. And I imagine, on top of that, they probably weren't sure whether they were going to use this or not, as it would have been a really nice way to be able to get all the way from one end of the tunnels to the other, in somewhat of a quick fashion, without needing to open a whole bunch of doors. But maybe that's just wishful thinking. For our next hidden room here on Mob of the Dead, we need to fly on outside of the map to the Golden Gate Bridge. And even though this is a long journey with no clip, we'll come to find out that there is no bridge here whatsoever. It's just a floating 2D texture above the water. As it turns out, there's a bit of a dev trick being used here to get you to a secret location that is where the Pack-a-Punch is. And it doesn't actually bring you to the Golden Gate Bridge that you see outside the map. Instead, it brings you all the way over here into the water behind docks and far underneath the map, which we can just start to see the lights below us shining through the fog. And as we get closer, it becomes extremely apparent that this is the Golden Gate Bridge that you go to, sunken underneath the waters of Alcatraz. Now, obviously, this is playable space, so anyone who has played Mob of the Dead has probably been here before. But it is super cool to see where the developers hid it and how they did so, teleporting you so far underneath the map that the rest of it is not called in, and it looks completely normal staring up at the sky, and below us is a whole nother sheet of water. In its current state, if we go up to the electric chairs, it'll say missing active trigger text, because we are not supposed to be here, and in fact, these electric chairs aren't supposed to be spawned in at all right now. They normally only spawn in after you kill the Brutus, and then they fall from the sky in a very spectacular fashion. But to sell this illusion even further, the developers put a little fake Alcatraz out in the distance that's actually really hard to see with the fog that they put on the map. There we go. That is much better. And we'll begin to see a little 2D texture that's floating out there, kind of like a ship, actually, on the horizon. But no, this is definitely just Alcatraz, and possibly an actual picture of it, as there's a lot more vegetation and texturing here on the rocks that we just don't see in the map. And not to mention also some more buildings out here that are not created in Mob of the Dead, which really makes you wonder what it would have been like to be able to have access to the entirety of Alcatraz on this map and explore things from the residential buildings over there to the factory buildings on the other side of the island. It would have been absolutely amazing. Maybe Terminus Island will give off some of those vibes for us. But that is it for Mob of the Dead, so let's go ahead and hop on in the electric chair and make our way over to Buried for our final hidden room.
I'll see you all in hell!
which this one is something I have covered in just about every single video I can, so it's very likely you've seen this before, but just in case you haven't, let's explore the hidden rooms of the witch's house. First of all, there's a few that you can see right off the start, with the witch herself just teleporting between them. These do have collision, at least for the most part, but not exactly much modeling, and all the textures that you don't see from inside the map do not exist. There's another one right here inside this little steeple, which does have collision, and below us is another hidden room that has a massive rock inside of it. But by far the coolest hidden room inside of this witch's house is one that we can find if we go up the other way from the stairs, through this rubble, and into this hidden room, which has a bookshelf in it, and when we get close, it also has an animation where it flips 360 degrees and then slides back and forth. Now, this room that I'm standing in doesn't exactly have a lot of textures, but it does have floors, and it does have walls. In fact, walls that are actually shaped. The room itself is not just a box. And this really makes me think that at one point, they were thinking about having this be playable space, and it does connect pretty perfectly with this hallway upstairs that goes through the bedroom, the area that you jump down currently in Buried. It very well might be the case that at one point they were thinking about this being one of the possible exits out of the witch's house, and the bookshelf here being the means to exit, as there is even a little area back here on the side of the witch's house with a gate that you don't get to see pretty much whatsoever from inside the map. Although, with some rocks here to hide some of the area that is just unfinished, it definitely seems like sometime during the development they realized that this just wasn't going to happen. But still, it's really cool to see that the bookshelf is still left over in there with its animation intact. Although, albeit, a pretty weird animation. I mean, it's quite a bit different than the one that is used for the bookshelf inside of the map. And what's crazier than this is not the only other bookshelf. As if we hop back on into the witch's house through the way that you use to exit, to our right will be a doorway that has a big old padlock on it. And funny enough, this door is hiding something, another hidden room with another hidden bookshelf. One that also has an animation, the same exact one as the other, although this room does not have collision. Unlike that one, you simply just fall straight to the bottom of the map. Oh hey look, there's a lantern down here. I wonder if that was covered in another Dev Tricks and Secrets by a guy who forgot that it was part of the Easter egg at the time. Huh, couldn't be me, that's for sure. But that is it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, consider leaving a like down below. It helps me out a ton, and of course, make sure you're subscribed so you can come back for more, as there are tons more Dev Tricks and Secrets and hidden rooms and things to explore on this channel, and I can't wait to get to it all. And if you did enjoy this video and you want to watch more of my content, then you can click one of the videos on your screen right now, but if not, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Stay awesome, and peace out.